As soon as it says go, do you see a thing that says go, or a sing that says go?
No, it says on the air. You're
But
in the
it
broadcast.
changed. But did that change once I hit go?
I assume that you hit go at the moment that I saw it change to on the air. You're in the broadcast.
Okay, well that makes
How would
sense.
I know? There was no go involved on my side.
Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2. You never say 1. You just say 2, and then it's silent for 1, because then they start rolling.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I learned that watching Wayne's World.
Ah,
I wonder if how many people know that because of that show. Though
I went to
my hand's not in the camera.
I went to a taping when I was a kid. Made a very big impression on me. A in studio taping of, I think it was of Charles in Charge.
Really? That is an interesting thing to do.
Yeah, it made a very big impression on me. It never hit me until this moment that that's sort of a
Formative
noteworthy
experience.
Charles in Charge.
So wait, so you saw who was it? Charles Bukowski?
Was
What
it
was his
Scott
name?
Baio?
Scott Baio. You saw him live
I guess so, yes.
and in person. How
Yeah.
old were you?
I don't know, 8, 10,
Could have
12?
been 8. Could have been 23.
Yeah. I don't know, 30, 37. Yeah, Charles in Charge of our days and our nights. It was pretty boring, is what I remember, is because it's just like little bits at a time. But it was interesting because it was TV being made right in front of you. There's
Right.
TV being made. Here's how it's made.
I saw a show. I went to a taping of something, and I can't even remember what it was. It might have been. I can't remember, but I do remember they held up signs. It was like applause, applause,
Yeah.
applause.
Yeah. Very
And
manufactured.
well, it is interesting from putting on shows and how it's like that's what you think you're competing against are people who have to tell their audiences to
Yeah.
cheer
Yeah.
and when.
Yeah. But
So if
also
you
they
can
would
actually,
do 7 takes or 8 takes of a joke. And then people are like gamely laughing all 8 takes.
they're
Oh,
just like, well, maybe people just want to know what role they're playing. You come in and you sort of like, and somebody says, okay, your job is to sit here, and when we say applause, then you want to be because we want to
yeah.
get people excited, and people are like, okay, you give people a job to do. If it's
Yeah.
not too painful, they probably want to do it.
Well, there is something even funny about any play, any movie, anything where we absolutely 100% know it's fictional. We know these people are actors. We know this is staged, and we can just weep and feel fury.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like we intentionally just like sit down to be. It strikes me as sort of like
Yeah.
naive a little bit. Like you think about hundreds of years ago, they would go to these plays and then someone would put on the mask and everyone would be like, boo. And it strikes me that we still do that. It's just
Oh,
like
yeah.
the plays
We
look more and the movies look sophisticated, but we're just like, okay,
same
we
thing.
could have seen this actor 1,000 times and know this is not that person. And yet we're
This
like,
is not them. This is not
Yeah.
actually Hercules.
yeah,
It's Brad Pitt.
right.
We know that. We saw him in that other movie.
And yet we are weeping at
And
his.
yet we're sort of like Hercules. Uh, what is what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, we like being told stories, and why
Yes.
wouldn't we? Stories are great, and you could just sort of say. I mean, that's the funny thing is that we've become dependent on these elaborate. I was telling you, I just was watching this Industrial Light and Magic documentary, this 6-part
Right.
documentary, and it's just amazing. And George Lucas at the beginning says, movies are all special effects. The whole thing is a special effect.
Mm.
It's just like you're sitting in a theater and you're watching things that couldn't happen in real life, or just even the editing of itself. But like when you think about like how can we tell a story if there's not the constraints of reality, then what how can we tell that story? And he had a story about spaceships doing dogfights in space, and then it's just like, okay, how do you actually pull that off so that you can possibly suspend your disbelief?
Right.
And how the efforts that they had to go to, but it is really funny, like at the end of the day, like if we were around a campfire, it's just as good to sort of say, oh my god, this is what happened. I was walking down this thing, and then this person came out and it surprised me, and then this other thing happened, and you're sort of just like, you're there.
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
right.
need any of that stuff, but we've become dependent on this sort of like, well, I don't know. That dragon looked pretty. It's like, you know what it takes to make a dragon look
Yeah.
remotely passable?
Yeah.
Who
But
cares?
but actually I'm not sure that we
But it
do
is
care that
great when you
much.
see it
It's
great.
like you see if you can, I guess you can't easily get the original Star Wars anymore, speaking of Star Wars. But when you do, you adjust to it, or it's like watching a
Totally.
shadow puppet story. You're
Yeah.
like, oh,
You're
shadow
like, I'm
puppets,
in.
and then your brain just goes click. All right, this is our universe.
I get it. That's the one person, and that's the other person. They're mad at that person. And
Yeah.
yes, it might be a stick, it might be a shotgun. I don't know yet.
Yeah, you click on in.
Yeah, and that's and maybe is that interesting as we think about creative, a creative way
What do
to
you want to
be
call it?
creative.
Creative, you know, uh,
A creative method. If you think about thinking of words words that would
Words,
say things.
go after each other.
But if we think of a creative method, like maybe that's an important part of it, is recognizing that an audience shows up and they're probably ready
Yeah,
to like go wherever you. It's just like, hey, I want to tell you something, or I want to show you something I'm working on.
yeah.
People be like, cool, but like as creators, I feel like there's this idea that like, oh, it's gotta be perfect. If we can't let any
Right.
any glue seams show.
Right. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like, no, people would be like, if you just sort of say, well, okay, I'm working on this and this is broken, but this is what I'm trying to do with it, and people would be like, oh, wow,
It's
cool.
true. You have strong story. You could show all seams. You could sort of boldly and proudly show seams, and probably no one would care. And actually, I think of this as an Achilles heel for myself, is that I don't have I don't have great story chops, and I have pretty good style chops. And so plenty of times I've made something that's like flash, 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 music, and then people are like, cool. What is this? What's happening?
That's so interesting. I feel like I have the opposite problem. Like I've got all kinds of story happening, but when it comes to style, when it comes to delivering that story, I just like, it's not even just glue seams. It's like the pieces are all on the floor, and I'm just pointing at them and say, "See, I mean, if you put that over there," and then people just can't keep up with all the things that I'm making them put together in their own minds. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that's bad story skill.
The studio audience right now is being like, why don't you dummies collaborate? I've got all
Gosh, I have
this.
this.
If only I knew someone that.
Find someone. I don't know where to find them.
Well, I'll continue to fail.
Just keep looking. See you later.
Yeah, talk to you later. Well, good.
And nothing was discovered.
Boy, I sure feel better after telling him about my problems.
He had a very similar problem, except it was the exact opposite problem.
And he's looking for a collaborator that has the things I have. And I'll take some coffee. Are you having coffee? No, that's water. That's a water cup.
That would be good to have a coffee thing this big.
I have not figured this out, so I have a little warming plate for my coffee, but it's way in the corner of my desk, which works fine, except when I'm in this position. You don't have a warming plate? Your eyes are big at the idea of warming plate?
It never occurred to me. That's a brilliant idea. A warming plate for your coffee.
Oh, yeah.
I never even thought that was a use of a warming plate. I always thought warming plates were used for like camping cooking.
Yeah. But this isn't exactly one of those. This is a coffee warming plate.
A coffee mug warming plate.
Yeah.
It's just like keep the mug warm.
Yeah, I will say.
Does the coffee get worse in taste?
Yeah, coffee gets worse in taste, but it stays warmer. And I would say after having tried a couple of these things, get one that goes hot and just don't burn your hand on it. But like, if anything, it just keeps them a little too tepid. And I wouldn't mind one that really has a little more huzzah in it.
This episode was brought to you by we're giving honest critiques.
Right, all you coffee warming plate makers. See, so it's way in the corner. That was my story.
That you loved, I would actually buy it right now. I go to Amazon.
Well, I won't tell you, but
why would I do that?
I won't tell you this, but a friend of mine, there's this very popular mug that's like a smart mug that keeps its coffee warm. You can set its temperature, and the mug itself stays hot. But it's pretty cool. And I had a friend.
$400.
No, it's not, but it's ridiculously expensive. It's in the hundreds. But I had a friend that raved about it so much. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And I got it for a gift for Rebecca, actually. And she was like, that's so cool. And then she used it for a few days, and she's just like, this isn't the experience that I love about coffee. It's just like too
Did it
gadgety.
have like a cable attached to it?
No,
so like she could, like,
it's beautiful.
she's like, spill it on herself.
No, it's got a rechargeable battery. It's beautiful. It's well designed. What I was so sort of admiring of her for is the clarity to be like, yeah, this thing works and it's clever, but it's taking away my pleasure in the sort of like mug coffee steam experience. It's just like it's a little too gadget for her coffee experience. So I was like, I'll take it. But with that in the back of my head, I couldn't get there either. It was ruined. I was like, yeah, this is gadget where you want,
that is so interesting.
You want like full analog.
I think it's also funny how so you can have a good idea. This goes back to what we were saying before yesterday, which is style is a game of chicken. That, in a way, it's probably the same thing with gadgets. Like if somebody invented the iPhone, it's like the iPhone. It does everything. You have it all in your pocket. You can do all these things. You can watch a movie. You can type on it. You can do all these different things. And if somebody just had just the sort of like, yeah, but that's gonna ruin my experience of something, and like somehow it made the creator be like, oh shit, you're right.
Yeah.
Like if you don't hold your ground, then you could just like, yeah.
I remember, when the iPhone came out, it was a little bit like, oh, nerd gadget, because I remember I finally caved with the 3G, which I think was about the third generation. And I remember being in line in a morning to buy one. And then like someone I knew from high school like happened to drive up and park. And I was like, hey. And it was a little bit like of a shameful, like, you're in line to buy an iPhone. And I remember the shame I felt. And that, because it was sort of like, oh, nerdy niche. But I think that quickly disappeared and now becomes...
Which really may be the brilliance of Steve Jobs is that,
Jobs.
All the nerds... Jobs. Steve Jobs. That he was like, this technology is nerdy. I mean, think about what this is like early 2000s. Technology is still pretty nerdy. And then he's just like, okay, he still hangs out with nerds, but how can we bridge to non-nerds? That's the whole thing. He's just like, okay, nerds, yes, you're right about needing all of the ports and the all the different things to plug in all your different things for your nerd town, but we need to bring in the 90% of people who don't think that nerd town is cool.
Yeah.
That's the market.
Totally.
I was in nerd town. I was a founding member.
What?
No, I mean, that wasn't a founding member. That would be something to be proud of.
You're a rocker and roller.
Yeah. But I was rocking and rolling at night, and I was fixing people's computers in an office during the day.
Yeah, totally different than now.
I mean, now we've evolved. Well, so I think we solved it, though.
We solved it.
Nice work.
Well done. High fives and broadcast.